Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Oh Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Oh Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Sri Radha Madhava ki Sri Sri Radha Giridhari ki Jai Jai Om Viṣṇu Paramahamsa Yamarāja Gajaja Shudra Shri Srimad His Divine Grace by Janana Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Bhubari ki Jai Jai Om Viṣṇu Paramahamsa Yamarāja Gajaja Shudra Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Bhubari ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai ISKCON Founder Jaya BBT Founder Jaya Shri Bhubari ki Jai Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Samvira Bhakti ki Jai Gaura Premanandi all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Bring this down a little bit. There we go. Okay. Hare Krishna. Just doing all these points. So this morning, reading from the 6th canto, 3rd chapter. This is text 27. Yamarāja is concluding his instructions to his servants, the Yamadutas. So this is text 27. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Word for word. Te Deva Siddha Parigita Pavitra Gatha Ye Sadavaha Samadrisho Bhagavat Prapanah Tan No Pasidata Harer Gaddaya Bigutan Naisham Vayam Na Cha Vayaha Prabhavama Dandi Deva Siddha Parigita Pavitra Gata Ye Sadhava Samadrisho Bhagavat Parpanah Tannao Pasidatta Harir Gadaya Bigutan Naisham Vayam Nachavaya Prabhavama Dandi Te Deva Siddha Parigita Pavitra Gatha Ye Sadhava Samadrisho Bhagavat Prapanah Tanno Pasidat Harir Gataya Biguptan Naisham Vayam Nachavaya Prabhavama Dandi Deva Siddha Parigita Pavitra Gatha Ye Sadhava Samadrisho Bhagavat Prapanah Tano Pasidat Harir Gadaya Biguptan Naisham Bhayam Nachavaya Prabhavama Dandi
Te Deva Siddha Parigita Pavitra Gatha Ye sadhava samadrisho bhagavat prapanaha.
Ye sadhava samadrisho bhagavat prapannah.
Tanno prasidata harir gadaya bhiguptan.
Tanno prasidata hare gadaya bhiguptan.
Naisham vayam nachavaya prabhavama dande.
Naisham vayam nachavaya prabhavama dande.
He deva siddha padigita pavitra gatha.
Ye deva siddha parigita pavitra gatha.
Ye sadhava samadrisho bhagavat prapannah.
Ye sadhava samadrisho bhagavat prapannah.
Tano pasidata hare gadaya bhiguptan.
Kano pasidata hare gadaya bhiguptan.
Naisham vayam nachavaya prabhavama dande.
Naisham vayam nachavaya prabhavama dande.
Deva siddha parigita pavitra gatha.
He deva siddha parigita pavitra gatha.
Ye sadhava samadrisho bhagavat prapannah.
Ye sadhava samadrisho bhagavat prapannah.
Tano prasidata hare gadaya bhiguptan.
Tanno prasidata hare gadaya bhiguptan.
Naisham vayam nachavaya prabhavama dande.
Naisham vayam nachavaya prabhavama dande.
Te deva siddha parigita pavitra gatha.
Deva siddha parigita pavitra gatha.
Ye sadhava samadrisho bhagavat prapannah.
Ye sadhava samadrisho bhagavat prapannah.
Tano pasidata harer gadaya bhiguptan.
Tanarusida harir gadaya bhiguptan.
Naisham vayam nachavaya prabhavama dande.
Naisham vayam nachavaya prabhavama dande. Anyone else? Mani? Are you a... the chant? Okay, word for word here. Synonyms. Te, they, deva, by the demigods, siddha, and the inhabitants of Siddhaloka, parigita, sung, pavitragataha, whose pure narrations, ye, who, sadhavaha, devotees, samadrishaha, who see everyone equally, bhagavat prapanaha, being surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tan, them, na, not, upasidata, should go near, harehe, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, gaddaya, by the club, abhigutan, being fully protected, na, not, isham, of these, vayam, we, na cha, and also not, vayaha, unlimited time, prabhavama, are competent, dande, in punishing. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. My dear servants, please do not approach such devotees, for they have fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are equal to everyone, and their narrations are sung by the demigods and the inhabitants of Siddhaloka. Please do not even go near them. They are always protected by the club of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore Lord Brahmā and I, and even the time factor, are not competent to chastise them. Purport. In effect, Yamarāja warned his servants, quote, "My dear servants, despite what you may have done previously to disturb the devotees, henceforward you should stop. The actions of devotees who have surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord and who constantly chant the holy name of the Lord are praised by the demigods and the residents of Siddhaloka. Those devotees are so respectable and exalted that Lord Viṣṇu personally protects them with the club in his hand. Therefore, regardless of what you have done this time, henceforward you should not approach such devotees. Otherwise, you will be killed by the club of Lord Viṣṇu." This is my warning. Lord Viṣṇu has a club and chakra to punish non-devotees. Do not risk punishment by attempting to disturb the devotees. Not to speak of you, if even Lord Brahmā or I were to punish them, Lord Viṣṇu would punish us. Therefore, do not disturb the devotees any further. Unquote. Om Agyantimarandasya Gnanjana Salakaya Chakshulunminidam Dena Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svabadandikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchikapatarubhascha kripa sindhu bheva patidanam bhavanibho vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. So by your good wishes and blessings, I'll try to say a few words here. So there's two points that caught my attention. One was the big one is the warning that don't offend devotees of the Lord. Don't offend devotees. Big problem if you offend devotees of the Lord. And also in the verse here, in the purport, is mentioned about the good qualities of devotees. So those two things are there. And in our literature, they say about Scripture, there's two things in Scripture. One is what to do and what not to do. One is what to do, and the other is what not to do. And that's just good advice. What to do and what not to do. So, niyama, right? Things to do and things to avoid. So that's just, here it's some things to avoid. And in the scriptures there's many different historical incidences. Of course, this is one right here at Jamil. But what happens, well, of course the Yamadutas they didn't suffer. They stopped. Imagine if they picked a fight with the Vishnudutas. Well, that wouldn't have been very good at all. That wouldn't have been very good. But they were smart enough to just back off and then go back and ask Yamarāja. And of course, this conversation ensued. But there are different incidences in our books about persons who offended devotees. And what happened? Now, in the purport here, in the verse, is mentioned that Gadaya, Lord Viṣṇu has a club, and he also has a chakra. He says he has 4 symbols. What are the 4 symbols?
The conch, the disc, the chakra, and the
Club. And 2 are for devotees, and 2 are for the non-devotees. Can you guess what 2 are for the devotees?
the club and the conch.
For the devotees.
Yeah.
Who's going to blow a conch and whack you in the head? No, come on. What? Are for the devotees. Blessings. Okay. And the club and the chakra, that's for the non-devotees, for chastising. Okay. So, so many different stories. But I was going to read from a few, the story of Ambarish Maharaj, because the chakra is there. Chakra is also for chastising. And we have the Ambarish Maharaj, wonderful, wonderful, pure devotee of the Lord, and his encounter with Durvasa Muni, who was envious of him. We'll read a little bit about that. And of course, we have Jagaya Madai. The chakra is invoked also. They almost, fortunately, Nityananda Prabhu intervened and saved them. But there's so many different stories there, and of course, we'll do some reference to Prahlad Maharaj, the greatest example of this. So one has to be very careful. So read a little bit about that, and then also bringing it back to our day-to-day life with devotees, and understanding this principle of being very, very careful not to offend devotees of the Lord. And the story of Ambarish Maharaj, I'm not going to read the whole account. Great devotee Lord. He was a king, very, very powerful, very Raja Rishi. He was a pure devotee of Krishna, and he was acting as a king. And he was performing his Ekadasi Brata for a whole year, and he was getting ready to break it. And this one powerful yogi, Durvasa Muni, who's a partial expansion of Lord Shiva, he arrives at that time. And the etiquette is, of course, you don't eat before a guest. You don't do that. You make sure the guest has something. But he noticed there was one muhurta, which is about an hour and a half, left, just like every Dwadasi, Dravida Prabhu goes. The time to break the fast today is between, right, it's there in the calendar. You're supposed to break your fast during that particular time, otherwise it's considered an offense and you don't get the benefit of the fast. So Ambarish Maharaj was wondering, because Durvasa said, so okay, anybody left to take a bath like that? And he was thinking, this is my seva. He wasn't thinking, boy, I'm really hungry, I got to break the fast. Right? Devotees go, boy, I'm really starving. When do I get to eat? When's breakfast or whatever? But it wasn't that at all. He and his queens, who were exalted just like him, they were performing the austerity, and for the pleasure of Viṣṇu. That's why you perform the Ekadasi Brata, for the pleasure of Viṣṇu. So he wanted to complete it properly for the pleasure of the Lord, but the time was running out when he was supposed to break the fast. Yes, because he was envious. He was thinking, I'm a really big yogi and all that, and everyone's so they're glorifying him like anything, Where's the glory for me? And he's just money, big power. Usually a king or someone. You think, big materialist, all that power and all those queens and so on and so on and so on, and people offering him all kinds of respect. So he couldn't understand. So what did Ambarish Maharaj? He consulted with his learned advisors and Brahmins, and they told him that you drink water, because water is like breaking the fast and not breaking the fast. So there's a little loophole there. So to please the Lord, he drank a little water, and it says Durvasa Muni by his mystic power could understand that he had broken the fast without feeding him first, and he came back really upset. Now, as a partial expansion of Lord Shiva, he has a tendency to get really angry. He's also a bad dresser, right? Durvasa means he doesn't dress very well either.
That's what I thought. It doesn't mean.
What does it mean? No?
It means impossible to live with.
Impossible to live with. Okay, so that's even better. So, and people are very fearful whenever he shows up because they don't know. You ever know anyone who's like, they show up, they're always in a mood? Pins and needles, it's like, is he going to be happy? Is he going to be sad? Like, I better not say the wrong thing. Every time he shows up, you say the wrong thing, he goes off the handle, and everyone. So Durvasa Muni's like that to the degree. Sometimes he's very, very kind. He's given so many different blessings and benedictions, but sometimes he gets very, very upset. So he got really upset, and he came back, and he was so upset, and he criticized Ambarish Maharaj. I don't want to read too much because we have so many things to discuss. The verses I picked are near the end of the pastime. But what he did was he created a demon to kill him.
Demoness, actually.
Demoness?
Yes.
Okay. Big fiery, right? Right. And then Sudarshan appeared. Now earlier I remember reading this earlier, actually the disc of Viṣṇu was given to Ambarish Maharaj as a gift to, chastise those people who need chastising. So that disc immediately appeared and burned the demon, and then started coming after Durvasa Muni because of his offense. What an offense. He tried to kill, just like Indra, I go off too many tangents, he tried to kill all the residents of Vrindavan. Not a good thing to do. Talk about offense. So Durvasa Muni sees the chakra coming for him and spinning, and he immediately leaves, and he's thinking, where do I go for shelter? You got the Sudarshan chakra following me. So he goes to Lord Brahmā. He figures, let's go to the head of the universe, and Lord Brahmā says, I can't help you. I can't help you at all. So then he goes to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva says, I can't help you. It's the disc of Viṣṇu. So he goes, I think Lord Shiva said, go to Vaikuntha, ask Lord Viṣṇu to call off his disc. In the universe, yeah, it's the Vaikuntha planet in this universe, and he goes there, and Lord Viṣṇu tells him ultimately, I can't help you. You've offended my devotee. You have to go to him. you have to go to Ambarish Maharaj. So, and this journey took how long? A year on this planet. So he comes back, with the Sudarshan chakra is chasing him the whole time, just right on his heels, I guess you could say that. And he's such a powerful yogi, he's actually going through the universe. He can fly through the universe, so powerful. And he comes back and he falls at the feet of Ambarish Maharaj and he begs forgiveness. And Ambarish Maharaj forgives him. And Ambarish Maharaj had actually been waiting for a whole year for him to show up, not eating anything, just waiting, because and asking Lord Viṣṇu to forgive him. And actually here it is. One of the verses I wanted to read is actually, let's back it up here. 40. It's my paper. Got too many things here. Okay, 48. So this is, I think this is Lord Viṣṇu. Oh no, that's the very, very beginning. So at the very, very beginning, this verse here is when that demon appeared, and Sudarshan appeared. It says here, verse 48 in that chapter, as fire in the forest immediately burns to ashes an angry snake, so by the previous order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his disc, the Sudarshan chakra, immediately burned to ashes the created demon to protect the Lord's devotee. And the purport here, Prabhupada saying, as a pure devotee, Maharaj Ambarish, although in such danger, did not move an inch from his position. So we're talking about, I mentioned earlier, that two things, offending devotees, but also the qualities of these devotees who are fully protected by the Lord. Nor did he request of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to give him protection. So two things, he was fearless, and he didn't ask Krishna for any protection. He was fixed in an understanding, and it was certain that he was simply thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the core of his heart. A devotee is never fearful of his death, for he meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead always, not for any material profit, but as his duty. The Lord, however, knows how to protect his devotee, as indicated by the words pragdishtam. The Lord knew everything. Therefore, before anything happened, he had already arranged for his chakra to protect Maharaj Ambarish. This protection is offered to a devotee even from the very beginning of his devotional service. That's one line I wanted to catch. Because we're reading very, very exalted devotees in the different pastimes, but it says even when you begin, the day you begin your devotional service, Krishna takes notice and he starts protecting us. So it goes on a little bit further about Konteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. If one simply begins devotional service, he is immediately protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshishami. Protection begins immediately. The Lord is so kind and merciful that he gives the devotee proper guidance and all protection, and thus the devotee very peacefully makes solid progress in Krishna consciousness without outward disturbances. A serpent may be very angry and ready to bite, but the furious snake is helpless when faced by a blazing fire in the forest. Although an enemy of a devotee may be very strong, he is compared to an angry serpent before the fire of devotional service. So some encouraging words here. And the last verse I wanted to read in this chapter is number 69. This is Lord Viṣṇu speaking to Durvasa Muni, sending him. He said, O Brahmana, let me now advise you for your own protection. Please hear from me. By offending Maharaj Ambarish, you have acted with self-envy. Therefore, you should go to him immediately without a moment's delay. One's so-called prowess, when employed against the devotee, certainly harms he who employs it. Thus, it is the subject, not the object, who is harmed. Purport. A Vaishnava is always an object of envy for non-devotees, even when the non-devotee happens to be his father. Guess what story is going to be referred to here? Prahlad Maharaj. To give a practical example, Hiranyakashipu was envious of Prahlad Maharaj, but this envy of the devotee was harmful to Hiranyakashipu, not to Prahlad. This is a good, I like this line here. Every action taken by Hiranyakasipu against his son Prahlad Maharaj was taken very seriously by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna's watching everything and just counting. Like that. And thus, when Hiranyakasipu was on the verge of killing Prahlad, the Lord personally appeared and killed Hiranyakasipu. Service to a Vaishnava gradually accumulates and becomes an asset for the devotee. Similarly, harmful activities directed against the devotee gradually become the ultimate cause of the performer's fall down. Even such a great Brahmana and mystic yogi as Durvasa was in the most dangerous situation because of his offense at the lotus feet of Maharaj Ambarish, a pure devotee. Does that mean class is over, or someone's backing up? It's interesting sound. Is that the smoke alarm? Okay. So keep continuing on here. So, very, very dangerous, offending the devotees of the Lord. And the story of Jagai and Madai, I was reading it. It's very in the Chaitanya Bhagavatam, and it's talking about Jagai and Madai. They did practically every single sinful thing in the book, but there's one thing they never did, which was their good qualification. You know what it was? They offended the Vaishnavas. They didn't get a chance. It says there in the verse that they're always hanging out with drunkards, so they never got a chance to offend any devotees. They just never had a chance. So that was their one redeeming quality. They just... Yeah, that's the start of a... But and in there it talks about... it said in a society of sannyasis, where there's blasphemy of Vaishnavas, is more dangerous or degraded or sinful than just a group of sinful drunkards. In other words, blasphemy of devotees is so dangerous, very, very, very dangerous. So Jagai Madai, they were obviously had a first-class ticket to you-know-where, but somehow or other they weren't offending the Vaishnavas. They weren't offending the Vaishnavas. And Lord Nityananda took mercy, and Haridas Thakur decided, let's deliver them, because if they're delivered, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement will be glorified like that. So all the pastime is there, and of course, was it Jagai? Was the one who threw the pot, right? No, Madai threw the pot, and Jagai stopped him from anything further. And of course, the Chaitanya heard about it. He came with his chakra and was ready to kill both of them. And then the explanation was given that Jagai stopped Madai, so he forgave him. And then he was ready to kill Madai, and Lord Nityananda intervened, and so on and so on and so on. But one has to be very, very careful. I think these are extreme examples, very, very extreme examples. And you have the story in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Gopal Chapal. Very envious of Srivas Thakur, so he put these, what he did was he put some paraphernalia out there for worshipping Kali and so on his doorstep during Durga Puja, and made it look like he was a Kali worshipper. And just for that offense, he contracted leprosy, right? He suffered for many, many, many years until finally he approached Lord Chaitanya and was forgiven. Like that. Actually, it was Srivas Thakur forgave him. So these offenses are there, and of course Prahlad Maharaj, that story is there. So what to learn from this? We're not big demons trying to kill devotees or anything like that, but one has to be, the point is being made over and over and over again, one has to be very, very careful about Vaishnava aparad. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compares it to a mad elephant. A mad elephant. It just destroys everything. I remember a lifetime ago I was on Padayatra, the first Padayatra, right there. And an elephant, and we were sitting there on this little sandy beach, and the elephant was being bathed in the area of the river and so on, and then started coming out of the water. And the boys said, "Get out of the way, get out of the way," in Bengali or Hindi or whatever. They said, "Get out of the way," because the elephant just comes up, it doesn't look, just bump. So you got to get out of the way. Elephants don't really care. Yeah, maybe they're afraid of mice. Is that true? Say when the kids a mouse and the elephant runs away. But anyway, just here comes the elephant just come right up where I was sitting, and so just get out of the way, Prabhu. So you can imagine a mad elephant just going into a garden and just destroying everything. Big, just, they like picking up branches and throwing it, uprooting trees. And so that's an offense to devotees. So you have to be very, very, very careful, because it's a very personal thing, because devotees are dear to the Lord. Our devotional service is based upon Krishna's kindness and mercy to us, and if we're offensive to something very dear to the Lord, how can we make any advancement? Krishna takes it personally, just like we were reading earlier. He was noting all the different things Hiranyakashipu was doing. He notes all the good things, and he notes all the bad things. Krishna's in the heart. He's watching everything very, very carefully. It's all very, very personal. Very, very personal. So there's different offenses, and they squelch one's devotional service. Now, there was one line in here we read earlier in one of the purports by Prabhupada. It was saying that by offending devotees, everything becomes ruined. Everything becomes ruined. Fall down, I think it was, one falls from one's position. And if you examine devotees, if there's any big problems, or maybe even little problems, but big problems, you can always trace it back to offenses against Vaishnavas. It seems to be that's what it is. And it's an offenses against Vaishnavas. Because there's so many foolish, stupid things we can do. But, and Krishna is very kind. But when it comes, that's one thing he just cannot forgive. He just cannot forgive. Krishna, the devotee, forgives. Is very, very tolerant, is what it's saying here in one of the purports, that envious people are always, they don't like devotees. They're envious of devotees. They're always find that that's just a symptom of this material world. And they're envious of everyone. But devotees seem to be a target, because devotees are unwelcome. They're ruining the life of the materialist, right? So... but Krishna notes these things. One has to be very, very careful. One has to be careful. But it says there's different things which destroy our devotional service, different kinds of offenses. There's offenses in worshiping the deity, right? There's offenses against the holy name. And there's Vaishnava aparad, and included in that is Guru aparad. So one has to know what these offenses are in order to be very, very careful, because Krishna takes this seriously, very seriously. So that's one of the big points here. Krishna will protect his devotees, but when someone is offensive to devotees, and there's three ways you can offend someone. What's one of them?
Physically, verbally.
Verbally is one. Let's start at the lowest. Okay, verbally. Actually the lowest is in the mind. I don't know about that, Prabhu, over there. I just don't know, right? And then you could whisper to the devotee next to you, I don't know about that devotee over there. I don't know about it. Right? Or you can be physical and just push them. Like that. So be very careful. Very, very careful. And all of these, they stop our devotional service. And they can stop it for a long time. If it's serious enough, it can stop it for a long time. Krishna is just saying, you can't do that. You can't do that. So these are different points here. So Yamaraj, he's just letting his servants know. He's very kind. He's letting his servants know that there's one thing you don't want to do. Now, I know you have a rough job, right? Just gathering up sinful people and dragging them to hell. It's not, But there's one thing you don't want to do. Never, ever approach the Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. And he says, I can't help you if you do it. I can't help you. I can't help you. And the Lord Brahmā can't help you. No one can help you. And it'll be the wrath of Viṣṇu himself. His devotees are very, very, very dear to him. So, and of course, a real devotee doesn't take advantage of this, just like we're reading about Ambarish Maharaj. It's not that he just stood there. Didn't move an inch. He was fearless, but he wasn't expecting anything from Krishna. He wasn't saying, "Krishna, get me out of this." He was just completely very peaceful, and felt himself so humble that when Durvas returned, he felt that maybe he had offended him, and so I'm very, I forgive you. And how about some prasad? And it said it was very opulent, very tasty prasadam was offered to Durvas Muni, and then Ambarish took his meal. So, such a wonderful Vaishnav. like that. So devotees we have to be very, very careful. The very tendency, who was it? Some saying the basic tendencies of any person is that we are, what is that? Selfish and lazy. Selfish and lazy. That's a basic conditioning. Selfish probably means the mode of passion. Me, right? And lazy means tamagun. We're lazy. So we're basically, tendency is to be selfish and lazy. So and in that type of a society, there's always envy of others and criticism of others. It's rampant. It's a symptom of low-class people. They're always complaining, always criticizing, always finding fault. Right? And it's a mechanism, a psychological mechanism to make yourself better. Right? This person, blah, 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 it makes me better. Probably tells a story about the village boy that grew up, and one man was saying to the other, do you know he grew up and he became a court judge? He said, no, he couldn't. He was just such a silly little boy. How did he grow up and be a court judge? He said, no, he's a court judge. He's supposed to high court judge. He said, well, and the man said, well, maybe he is, but I'm sure he's not getting much salary. Like that, envious, like that, not appreciating. So it's a tendency is there. We've been brought up in that culture. It's in our blood. We have to be very, very careful not to find fault with others like that. And I'll end with this. Then we can have some discussion. But there's very nice instruction, all important instruction by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. As far as criticizing others, he says that, what was it? Look within, amend thyself. Do not pry into the faults of others. Look within, amend thyself. In other words, be so, and I think Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this also, we should be so busy trying to rectify our own faults that, I'm sorry, but I don't have time to find fault in others. I just don't have the time. You know, Burijan in his Japa book gives a nice example. He says that, compares the heart just like a room, a little dark, you know, and it is filled with all kinds of clutter and dust and dirty things, you know, so you open it up, it's like, my God. So, in other words, we have, someone goes, oh, Prabhu, you're a lazy no good for nothing. And you're supposed to go, you don't know the half of it, Prabhu. Thank you for pointing that out, but if you really knew what was in my heart, you'd probably say a lot more than that. So in other words, we are so conscious of all, Burijan goes, you know, the story about the dust, Cheto Darbana Marjanam, there's a little dust in the mirror. He says, you know how high that dust is? He says, it's like a mile high. It's not like a little like dust, you know, that I haven't, you know, cleaned the bathroom mirror upstairs for a week. It's like that dust in the heart is like, you need a not a shovel, but what do you call the things across the street? Bulldozer to start working on it. That's how much dust is in there. So if someone says, Prabhu, you got a little dust, you just say, well, yes, Prabhu, I know. I don't know if I want to open the whole door and show him what's really in there, because there's a lot of garbage in there. So the devotee is conscientious of his own faults. He just doesn't have time. You know, Prabhu, can you help me clean? You would be surprised what I got to work on. Hare Krishna. So that's how we avoid finding faults in others, because we just, two things. One is we're working on our own problems, and also always look for the good in others. That's another symptom of a Vaishnava. Immediately if your mind starts thinking of a fault, try to stop it and think of something good in that devotee, because everyone has so many nice qualities, so you can just think of those. And it's true. And if we look at it, there's another thing too. You know the old saying about when you point your finger at someone, how many fingers are pointing at you? I don't know about you. You're missing one there. You got two pointing at yourself. You're doing pretty good. You only got two pointing at you. The rest of us got three. So, yeah, whatever fault you find, you look and, when I was a kid growing up, I had the good fortune of having three brothers who always picked on me. Anyone ever have that? Siblings, right? Always picked on me. So there used to be that saying, what was that? I was just thinking, it takes one to know one. Remember that one? It takes one to know one. That's true. How would I know that you're selfish and lazy unless I'm selfish and lazy? right? How would I know that? So the point is, I'm more selfish and lazy than you are. So these are different points to contemplate. And ultimately, we have to come to the point of just having a pure heart. And that's a symptom of the great devotees like Maharaj Amarish. He didn't have one ill thought towards Durvasa Muni. Not even a slight, I wonder about this guy. Never entered his mind. Never entered his mind. Never entered his mind. He was so pure. So that's to aspire for, but until that point, we need to control our mind, and there's different ways to control the mind. So we can end here. I'm sure there's some questions or wonderful thoughts and additions to the class.
One comment. It's an editorial comment, because you read this purport here, 9469. Brahma, let me advise you for your own protection. This is Viṣṇu speaking to Devasa. Now, in the purport, Prabhupada talks about envy. A Vaishnava is always an object of envy for non-devotee, even when the devotee happens to be his father. To give a practical example, Hiranyakashipu was envious of Prahlad Maharaj, but this envy of the... Now, this envy has a special meaning. When we hear envy, we immediately think jealous. And I remember working on the Krishna book, I think it was, and Prabhupada said, we should not be envious even of an ant. And I said, well, what does an ant have that I might want? And I looked it up, and by that time I had found that I really need to look in the Oxford English Dictionary to find exactly what Prabhupada means oftentimes. So I had that facility. And it was there that envy can also mean simply malice. Envious can mean bear malice toward. And Prabhupada brought that with him. You know, he learned that was current English when he learned English. So and sometimes he means jealous for envious. So you have to know the context. But in something like this, the Vaishnava is always an object of envy for non-devotees. He's talking about malice. And the same thing is true for Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad. Hiranyakashipu did not really envy what Prahlad had. He was just angry at him and furious at him for challenging his whole, glorifying his archenemy and whatever it was. So that it's important to have that in your mind when you come across envy. Does Prabhupada mean bear malice here? And the majority of the time he does. And that way you get the full impact of what he's saying. Otherwise, it's just... A Vaishnava is always object of jealousy for non-devotees. Well, yeah, come on, we're so peaceful and we got prasadam. No, that's not what he means.
Anything else?
Hare Krishna?
Not yet.
Dimitri, go ahead.
Yeah, about offenses, when you make an offense to a devotee, does it take place only if it affects the devotee, or it can also take place if it's not affecting the devotee that you offended? I hope that makes sense.
No, I don't understand.
He doesn't even know you offended him.
Yeah, like if he doesn't know, or if he is not so offended by it, is it still going to work out and take place, or?
Yeah, that was the point. You can offend someone within your mind, or this or that, or not directly. It has an effect on our Krishna consciousness. Krishna takes note. Krishna's in the heart. And that was what the purport was saying, or the verse that you think you're hurting them, but actually that action or envy, whatever, is hurting you. So yes. Yeah.
Yet in this age, we're not affected by our thoughts. What we think is not going to be bringing a reaction to us. So how is it?
I don't know if that applies to Vaishnav Aparad Prabhu.
It's not.
No, so sorry, you don't cash in on that one. There's a nice the pastime of Amoga. Not you. Is Amoga Lila in the Chaitanya Charitamrita? It's Amoga. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's son-in-law. And is Amoga Lila also. Oh, Hare Krishna. He'd been named after a very wonderful devotee, but before he attained that status, the thing is, he was finding fault with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But anyways, he actually came down with a leprosy also. But the boy Chaitanya Mahaprabhu touched his heart, and he said, "How are these things in the heart of a nice devotee, a nice Brahmin? How are these things in a heart? Like any pure. So the point is, how are these things in the heart of a Vaishnava? So we have to be very careful what's in the heart. If we're thinking and this and that, not good thoughts. These don't belong in the heart of a Vaishnava. They just don't belong there. So we got to root them out. So be careful what's in our heart. Like that. Yes, Balaram Das Brahmachari.
Yeah, there's one of the offenses is
Your favorite one?
Yeah, my favorite one is to not be happy when seeing a devotee. It's interesting. It's very interesting, actually, because it's like, well, how is that an offense? Like, how does that add up? But if we think about it, like, for example, let's say somebody we really have affection for, like a good friend, and they're on their way, and we're talking about the good friend. We're happy that they're going to come.
It's like Pradumna when he came to visit last week.
Yeah. And then, so we're all happy and then when he comes, we're happy to see him. We've been talking well about him and everything. Now, if we're talking bad about someone and then they walk in the room, I mean, there's not going to be an expression of joy on her face. Oh, it's gonna show. We're not going to be happy. So it's connected to either speaking ill against the person, or it's connected to just thinking ill about the person. Because how can you be happy to see someone if you're thinking ill of them? So anyways, it's an interesting offense not to be happy. But also I was thinking about, because sometimes people say, or they may wonder, is it kind of instant? Is it like an instant reaction? Oh, you offend a Vaishnava, and it's like instantly. Because a lot of our experiences of karmic reactions are actually delayed quite a lot. Like, for example, some people, just the aspect of people suffering in their next life. They look like they're enjoying in this life with their, money and wealth, and then next life, it's delayed. So I'm just wondering about Vaishnava aparad, because is it like it's like a disease that's like festering, and then eventually it like, there's like a full-blown, disease that's deadly. So maybe you could just...
Well, one overriding understanding is that when we get our karma, whatever it may be, ordinary karma or reactions, Krishna decides exactly when that is the best time for you to get it. Right? Can't say, well, this aparad you're supposed to get in 20 years. This one's about 100 years. I think I'll do this one because I got 100 years. Not like that. Krishna knows exactly when, and sometimes you see it's instant, and sometimes you see it is delayed. But one thing is guaranteed, it will come, and the most disastrous result of Vaishnava aparad is you lose your Krishna consciousness. What's worse than that? You lose your desire to be a devotee. So, but when it comes, who knows? It can be instant. Just like I was this month, I was twice up in Santa Barbara. I stayed with Giridhari Priya at the Santa Barbara ecstatic ashram up there, so doing some weddings. And I said to myself, what? Where does Santa Barbara come from? Who was Saint Barbara? And you look it up, it's quite a far out story. Well, nice family. You know the story of Saint Barbara? Very nice. She's a martyr. It was like 200-300 BC or something, or not BC, but whatever. And very nice. Her father educated her very nicely. This and that, was hoping the best, and she became a Christian. This was a time during the Roman Empire that you became a Christian. It was like this big X on your head, and they're looking for you. And she refused to not be a Christian, and her father was thinking, I'll be an outcast. So he turned her in. And they tortured her, and then after torturing her, the next day all the wounds were gone. And they tried to burn her, and the flames went out, and this and that. And they're getting really frustrated. It's like the story of Prahlad, They got really frustrated, so her father decided he would do it. So he took off a sword and chopped off her head. But when he finished that and got on his horse to ride home, he was struck by lightning and killed. So she's like the patron saint for people who want to be protected from thunder and lightning, miners, explosions, things like that. So now, why wasn't she protected before she got her head cut off? I don't know. But he got his karma right away. He hopped on his horse, home, ping, That was it. That's the story. But she was martyred for Christianity, and so she just didn't want to. She was, and she said to herself that I'll die, just to show other people they should never give up their faith, like that. So she's one of these patron saints, Saint Barbara. Yeah. Saint. Yeah. There's a lot of female saints there. The Marias. What? Yeah. So on that happy note, should we end here? Are there any? Oh no, I'm sorry, Prabhu. Online.
Yes, Dharmasetu Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. Dandavat pranams, Prabhu. The spiritual master, the duty of the spiritual master is to chastise the disobedient disciple. And we all know that although still in the form of a disciple, the disciple is a devotee. So based on this, my question is, how does Viṣṇu react when he sees that one of his devotees is being chastised, although still in the form of a disciple? That is my question.
Okay. Well, there's a huge difference between fault finding and good instruction. So offending someone, blaspheming someone is not the same as you see, and it's your position as guru, as teacher, as mother, as father, as whatever, to instruct those who are in your care. And sometimes you have to chastise them for their own good. That's a whole different thing than out of envy, as the word, malice and envy, you are just fault-finding. That's a whole different thing. So what does Krishna think about that? He's very happy that the spiritual master is taking the time to instruct the disciple and bring them up and bring them up. He's very, very happy that someone's taking the time. And we should be very happy too. Oh, Prabhu, thank you for pointing out the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. God bless. Thank you so much, right? When we receive a little chastisement for this or that or whatever, thank you. Thank you so much. Was it? Yes, it was the intent. The spiritual master trying to get you out of the material world. Child is walking on the street. Parent, you've seen this sometimes. Parent grabs the child like, whoa! And the kid starts screaming and all that, hurt, or maybe even hurt. But you just saved the child's life. Someone comes over, you shouldn't treat your children like that. Just let them walk on the road. So, I mean, the spiritual master's saving us from the cycle of birth and death, and sometimes there has to be some strong words or chastisement. That's guru means. That's what sadhu and guru means. So that's good medicine. Well, they say the expression is tough love. Sometimes but it's the intent like that. So I apologize to the Sankirtan devotees. I've gone over time. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.